You won't believe it. The return fire came like we were about, like, say 30, 40 feet. And the return fire came. It was literally chasing our heels. And then this tank where Sanjeev was standing blew up. So, which was a matter of like 4 minutes. 4 minutes, if I had not taken him off, he would have gone up. And because I was trying to rescue him, I would have also been blown up.
ഈ മഹാരാജ്യത്തിലെ ഒരു ചെറിയ വിഭാഗം ജനങ്ങൾ മാത്രം സംസാരിക്കുന്നതാണ് എൻ്റെ ഭാഷ. പക്ഷേ ഞങ്ങളുടെ ഭാഷ സജീവമാണ്, ചലനാത്മകമാണ്.
No chance. I had no intentions of being a journalist. My dream was to be a doctor. And then what happened was that I messed up my exam papers, and I normally would top the biology exam, but for my senior Cambridge exam, I did miserably badly. And so it was difficult to get admission in a medical college, in a pre-medical college. And I did exceptionally well in English language and English literature, and that made it possible only to do English honors. And so it is the force of circumstances. I went into something I did not want to at all. I was heartbroken because I saw myself as a doctor. I loved healing people, being with people. But fate willed otherwise, and I was very upset. I was very sad about it for several years. But I kept topping in college. I was in Miranda House in Delhi University. I kept topping my class all the time. And then I said, maybe the universe is sending me some message. I should not treat it so disdainfully. To say that this tender. To say that, oh, I don't want about English, but I'm doing so well in English. And so finally I decided the only thing that my English honors trained me was for journalism. I entered journalism and I realized this is it. I loved it. I had no idea. There was no journalist in my family that I knew of who could tell me about what being a journalist was like, whereas my uncle and aunts and all were doctors, and I would see them, and I loved the work that they did healing people. But once I went into journalism, I always wanted to be with people. And here I was with people in different circumstances, in different situations. It was much wider in some sense than what the life of a doctor would have been. And I never looked back. And I always thank the universe for coming to my rescue, from rescuing me from my own stupidity that I thought being a doctor was the only way forward. Well, up to a point. Journalism is a profession where you can expose the wrongdoing, right? But you cannot do anything because you're only one part of the democracy, and a democracy must have different other wings. So you have the judiciary, you have the executive. So if we expose all the wrongdoing, if we expose the injustices, the inequalities, then it is up to the executive branch and the political branch to do something about it. So I dedicated my life to really exposing the wrongs. But that's not enough. The mission is accomplished only if the wrongs are rectified. And that has been a very mixed picture. Overall, I am sadder than happier I've been in journalism now 45 years. I feel some of the fundamental issues that I fought for and risked my life still exist today. It's a very tricky question, and it's interesting how you raise that, because you are a journalist, but you're also a citizen. But when you're a citizen, you are actually looking at the world as a journalist, because that's what makes you good, that you are human, you are a citizen, you feel all that. It's not just a profession, it is something larger in the sense of our country's progress. But I feel it is wiser for journalists to do their part really well, which is exposing with evidence whatever that is going wrong, exposing with courage of conviction what is going wrong, and then the rectification. There are other wings in a democracy. A journalist is not competent to rectify a bridge that has fallen, right? But we can expose that it has fallen, and then the other wings of society must. So we are not the role in a democracy, we are a role in democracy. We must also understand our power, but also our limitations. And it is together, it is by collaboration that we actually succeed in solving the problem. Journalists can't be the prosecutor, judge, witness, everything. That's wrong. That never works right, So I think the problem with journalism has been that they are not doing the fundamental role of a journalist, which is exposing the wrongdoing courageously. That we could still improve. No, I don't think. See, first and foremost, everybody has courage inside them. It's just that life has not tested it. Life has not made it necessary for you to tap into those inner resources. But as a journalist, I had to, and it was there. All those qualities that you need to be a journalist existed within me, and I was in situations, whether it was wars or riots or cyclones, where those qualities were required. But I often say this, what is most important is the commitment to the mission. Journalism was not a job for me. It is that commitment to mission. My mission is that I will do my bit for the sake of democracy. I will do my best to expose the wrongdoing. That is the mission. I want to create a better and fairer society. That has always been my mission. See, when you're doing that, when you're fulfilling that mission, you are like Arjuna, looking into the tree and seeing only the eye of the bird. You don't see everything else. I did not see all the kind of dangers and the obstacles. I saw my mission, how best to fulfill my goal. It is not to say that I was blind to what is going on. If you're blind to what is going on in a war front, you will be dead. So you are aware of it. Your antenna is up. But because you're so focused on getting your mission accomplished, you are not bothered by the dangers. You are not bothered by the risks, and they're no longer barriers. There will be all these obstacles will be there, but you just have to overcome them. Living a life is full of obstacles. There is no less obstacles in life than there is in a war front. It's a little more dangerous, but when I cross the street over here, I could be hit by a bus. It's as dangerous as that. I could, a random grenade could fall on me. And so one can't be caught up by the dangers. One has to be at the same time cautious. You have to know your terrain. You have to know, and that these are things that no one can teach you. To how to be a war journalist, for instance. You go to the war zone a couple of times cautiously, you can sense, your sixth sense will tell you, get out of this place right now because return tank fire is going to come. So you know that. You acquire this kind of sixth sense, well developed, because that's part of survival. We're all, hardwired to survive. So we will, depend on all these qualities and these instincts to, get over the problems. As long as you are committed to your goal, you will face obstacles, but face it as you would face in life. Face it with a sense of, optimism that it is part of the process of getting to your goal. Never to be, depressed by it or frightened by it. Risks, troubles, obstacles will always be there. It's just a fact of life. But how you respond to it, that is in your control. You cannot control all the obstacles that will come your way, but you can control how you are going to respond to it. Are you going to respond to it with a sense of, I will fix this problem, I'll try to solve this problem, or are you going to get intimidated by that and say that I better run away from here? So it's just a basic concept. It is not a great virtue, and courage. Everybody goes on about my courage. Believe me, I have seen ordinary housewives in Kerala showing so much courage, the kind of courage I have never had to show in my life. So everybody has it. It's just that it's not been tested, it has not been brought out. It's there. Well, I can think of, for instance, in Afghanistan, so we had gone to the frontier and there was a lot of artillery shelling, going on. But we had reached this is when I was with CNN, and we had reached right up to the, frontier. We had crossed the frontier, in fact. So there was this, tank, which was on our side, which was firing away. This is, Taliban firing away, to the other side. And my cameraman was so, because you had live action, it's so rare, unlike magazines, you can write about it. And for camera, you have to capture it live. He was so excited because the tank fire was going on, so he climbed on the tank and, started filming, for CNN. So I let him do that for about about 2 minutes. And then I said, Sanjeev, come down, just get down. So he said, no, I'm taking. I said, no, get down. He said, no, I have to take some. Look. And then I just pulled him. I saw, his trousers. I just pulled his trousers and I said, calm down. So he literally almost fell down, I told him. And I said, return fire will come right now. So we better run. So we ran. You won't believe it. The return fire came like we were about like say 30, 40 feet, and the return fire came. It was literally chasing our heels, and then this tank where Sanjeev was standing blew up. So which was a matter of like 4 minutes. 4 minutes, if I had not taken him off, he would have gone up. And because I was trying to rescue him, I would have also been blown up. So this is when a tank is firing, from the other side, they know where a tank is firing from, a return fire will come. It's inevitable. So this is what I mean by saying like sixth sense, knowledge of the, terrain, experience, these sort of things really matter. Or, looking for landmines. Sri Lanka was full of landmines, so we are going over there. Now, if you step wrong, you will blow up, or you lose your legs or whatever. So, it is just a question of looking where you're going. But we have to go. We have to go to the other side. It's fully landmine. But there are little, telltale signs of where a landmine is, placed. So you try to, walk across. It's dangerous, of course. But when you have the knowledge, you're not so, afraid. You're careful. You have to be careful. You have to be cautious. But knowledge is something, you can depend on. I have no regrets in life. I have no regrets in my personal life. I think I lived my life to the full. I enjoyed every moment. I worked hard. I fulfilled all my responsibilities. The only sadness that I have, the only regret that I have is that I have done so much of my reporting which was focused on two issues: inequality and corruption. I do believe that if India stopped being a corrupt nation, we would be a superpower, really a superpower, because nothing can hold us back. We are held back by corruption and by inequality. So when you have 25% of the population without the basics, I think it is wrong to go on increasing the wealth of 1% of the rich when you're not paying attention to the 25%. So these two issues, I feel, are still a problem for India. And inequality in the 21st century, with our knowledge, with our technology, with our expertise, it is a scandal and a shame. And I don't think any Indian can sleep in peace knowing that 25% of our fellow citizens are living such lives of poverty and indignity. So that is a huge regret as far as my own country is concerned. Well, that kind of depends on who you ask, I guess. I mean, the conditions have all changed. Situations are never the same. What was happening in the 70s and 80s and 90s, completely different to what is happening now. The ground situation has changed, dramatically. So in our time, for instance, the government was the controlling authority. The corporates were nowhere near powerful. So the government was losing control, but the corporates were yet to gain control. So we were in that vacuum period. It was fantastic. So we were able to operate with tremendous amount of freedom because we didn't face that kind of pressures from the government, nor did we face any pressures from the corporate sectors. India was mostly run by family businesses, so it was much smaller and part of the community in a way that today's corporate sectors are not. So it was different, and we were successful. I think we were called the investigative journalists. We were called the typewriter guerrillas, and all that was possible because the time was such. Today, India's moved on, and it's a totally a different world. When I entered journalism, it was unheard of for a woman journalist, to be a war correspondent. So that was a barrier, but women journalists of my generation fought that barrier. We triumphed, and so today there is no question. I mean, not today, even 20 years ago, we crossed that barrier. So there is no problem for a woman journalist to cover politics or to cover on TV or to be a war journalist. All those barriers were broken. But today's journalists face different pressures, the kind of pressures that we didn't face. So, we have to be mindful. It's very easy. Every generation says, we were so good, and the new generation, they're hopeless. That's just not true. They face different pressures. So there are lots of talented and committed journalists. I meet with them every day. I get emails from them every day. So I'm very, very optimistic about that. But the situation has changed in a way with social media, with the kind of, environment that we live in now, that, people's attention span is very limited. They want, more entertainment than news in that sense, and even news is presented more as entertainment. These are all not healthy developments, but it's not the fault of journalists because they have to respond in a situation where the ratings matter so much. In our time, ratings never mattered like that, so they have to be mindful of the ratings. So how do they then do journalism in a way which is meaningful but at the same time attracts the eyeballs? So it's a big ask, but there are enough journalists, and if the environment is right, they will perform beautifully. I look forward to, honestly, nothing personal, but I really look forward to an India where there is no corruption and where there is no inequality. It breaks my heart even today when I see a woman who could be my grandmother still sitting there and begging, and the kind of open sewers, and the kind of filth in which so many of these colonies are located. That is plain wrong. We are all fellow citizens. We are human beings. We are all fellow Indians. And when I live in other countries, and that has also been part of my education, that it is possible. Of course, other countries and all are much smaller. India is a much bigger problem. But if you look at it, in many ways, Kerala is much better than a lot of the other states. How was that possible? So don't give the argument that other countries, Western countries, are small, they are rich, and so on and so forth. Kerala is an example where a lot of things are working well. There is a sense of social community. There is a social, awareness. There is, people trying to kind of help each other. All kinds of things. Far better. It's not perfect, but far better than some of the other states. So we can do. Kerala can improve. The other states can also try to improve. But I guess one of my fears is that you see the kind of development that is taking place in, say, Gujarat, in Maharashtra. We are talking about the kind of investments that is going there. We are talking about the state-of-the-art infrastructure. That's not there in Kerala. That's not there in the rest of India. So you are seeing another level of inequality actually right before our eyes. And it is no way possible for some of the poorer countries in eastern India to ever catch up with Maharashtra or with Gujarat. Now, I don't begrudge them that. I mean, they are doing, that's fine. But what about the rest? What about the rest? What does this mean for India's fabric of unity if the Western India is at a level which is beyond what the rest of India is like first world standards, and Eastern India and other parts are way below. When you have this level of inequality, what is the impact of that on the fabric of Indian unity and stability? And I worry deeply about that. So my worries are in many ways about India, because I've been married to a Norwegian now for 25 years, and I've not changed my nationality. I'm still Indian. I'm probably the only person in Norway who's arrived 25 years ago and still is kind of Indian. Why is it? I mean, why is it that I want to be Indian? I could opt to be a Norwegian, which is probably the best passport in the world, but I can't, because my heart belongs to India, and I cannot be a Norwegian. I can't be anything else. I am an Indian. So I want everything that I dream of now is for the better future of my country. I would say dare to dream. You're only limited by your imagination. The best of science fiction authors have imagined things. That has become a reality, right? Because ordinary people cannot remember, cannot dream like that. So allow yourself to dream. Allow yourself to dream. Allow yourself to think big. There are no barriers except what you impose on yourself. And what is that? Your mind is imposing it. So break free from all that. Dare to dream. Have that vision. And then once you dream, that's not the end of the story. That's when the best part begins. Because then you must capture that dream. But then there is another thing that is equally important to remember. It's what Rudyard Kipling, wrote about. That it's very important to capture the dream. But be very careful to not allow the dream to capture you. You should capture the dream, not the dream to capture, because then you become a slave to the dream, and then all kinds of things go wrong. Then it becomes your egoism. You're at the end of the day, what human beings forget is that we're all small flecks, small little waves in this giant ocean. We are not the ocean. The minute you allow your dream to capture you, You think you are the ocean, and there begins your undoing. You are there to contribute your best to the rest of society, the rest of the world, because we're all in it together. We're all interconnected. There is no I, there is only we. So dare to dream, capture the dream, but don't let the dream capture you.